Everyone thinks tragedy begins when the gun goes off, but it doesn't. It surfaces at 5 in the afternoon in a hospital parking garage, where half the cameras are dead and guards change shifts early, where no one bothers to look at Alex Thompson, a single father, walking his asthmatic daughter to an appointment, dissolving into the concrete like part of the scenery. A female CEO is forced into a black car, clean enough to resemble an inventory procedure. The balance shifts instantly. She stands at the top of the power chain, while Alex has been erased from the system so thoroughly that no one remembers he ever existed. When the entire garage looks away, Alex pulls his daughter behind a concrete pillar. His eyes go cold, scanning details the way one rereads a problem he once swore to bury. The approaching footsteps, the freshly swapped license plate, the door that wasn't fully locked. That reflex can't be taught to someone doing odd jobs for a living. Alex knows that, and he doesn't say it out loud. Then the phone vibrates. A photo of Lily's school gate. One short line, "Don't interfere." Not a threat, more like a sentence already placed on the table. One wrong step will blow away the last quiet corner the two of them still have. Save a stranger, or keep his child hidden in the dark for one more night. When Alex lifts his head, only one truth remains, cold enough to numb him. Someone knows exactly what he is, and they want him back. Alex has crossed the line. If you were in his place, what would you do? Leave a comment and subscribe to see the price of this step. The night in the suburbs of San Francisco is not as quiet as people imagine. Late trucks are passing, old pipes knocking rhythmically inside the walls, and for Alex Thompson, there is another sound, so familiar it has become an obsession. The hum of the nebulizer by his daughter's bed. A steady rhythm, then slowing, then missing half a second, just enough to make his heart jolt, as if he had slipped on a dark stair. Alex jerks awake when the machine stutters. He leans over, gently turns the power dial, and presses his ear close. The sound returns, but not as full as every other night. Lily lies on her side, her shoulder lifting with each long, drawn breath. She opens her eyes, sees him watching, and presses her lips into a faint smile. "I'm fine," she says, her voice thin as paper. "Go back to sleep, Dad. You work tomorrow." Alex does not answer. He places his hand on her back, feels the small movement beneath the thin pajama fabric. Each of Lily's breaths feels like it is asking permission to exist a little longer. He checks the clock. Nearly 2 a.m. The nebulizer warns of low battery. He exhales slowly, keeps his voice even. "Let me call the hospital." "Okay, just to ask." The call connects after several rings. A female dispatcher's voice comes through, alert coldly. Alex explains quickly, careful not to sound urgent. The line goes silent for a few seconds, long enough for him to hear typing. Then the answer comes, short and firm. "Your insurance file is under review. At this time, we can't approve temporary support." Alex stands still. He stares into the darkness at the far end of the room, where the window faintly reflects his own shape. "Under review? For what reason?" he asks. "My daughter's machine is failing right now. We're just following the system," the woman replies. "You can call back during business hours." Alex tightens his grip on the phone, his knuckles whiten. "Who signed off on my file?" He speaks slowly, each word dropping with weight. There is no answer. A dry click, the call ends. He stands there a few seconds longer, then turns back to the bed. Lily's eyes are closed, but her lashes tremble. Alex adjusts the tube, pulls the blanket higher, leans in, and whispers, "I'm here." He is not sure if he is saying it to her or to himself. Still uneasy, he puts on a jacket and carries Lily to the car. She does not resist, only rests her head on his shoulder, light as a shadow. The hospital at night is bright white, disinfectant hanging in the air. Alex stands at the intake desk, sets the file down. The clerk flips through pages, types, then pauses. A security guard nearby glances over. His gaze lingers on the papers longer than normal, as if comparing them to something unseen. Alex notices it, not immediately, but enough for a familiar sensation to crawl up the back of his neck. The feeling of being watched, not by human eyes, but by a system that once knew him very well. The clerk hands the file back, voice unchanged. "You'll need to wait. The system isn't responding." Alex nods. He does not argue, not because he agrees, but because he knows arguing will change nothing. He brings Lily home before dawn. She falls asleep in the back seat, the nebulizer beside her, the battery light blinking weakly. Back in the old apartment, Alex lays Lily in bed and checks her breathing again. He sits in the chair nearby, back against the wall. His eyes never leave the small chest, rising and falling. Each breath feels like a short-term loan that could be called in at any moment. When Lily sinks into deeper sleep, Alex stands up. He opens the cabinet under the sink and pulls out an old laptop. Its scratched casing hinges softly creaking as it opens. He has not touched it in a long time, a relic from a previous life. He plugs it in and waits for the screen to glow. The operating system boots slowly, as if hesitating over whether to wake at all. Alex enters an old password. Muscle memory from the days he worked in sealed rooms, where everything was logged, traced, and carried consequences. The familiar interface appears. For a few seconds, nothing happens, and he almost relaxes. Then, a small icon lights up in the corner. A single green ping. Silent. Alex leans closer. The old employee monitoring app, the one he believed had been removed, along with his name, from the system. He does not open it right away. His hand hovers over the keyboard. In his mind flashed the hospital corridor, the guard's stare, the hollow response on the phone. He clicks. The screen goes dark for a beat. Then, a white window appears. No logo, no signature, just one line of black text, clean and emotionless. "Thompson, we are still monitoring you." Alex sits motionless. The only sound in the room is Lily's nebulizer, running steadily again, weak but not dead. He stares at the words for a long time, like staring at a lock, snapping shut behind him. There are no instructions, no direct threat, only confirmation. The life he thought was quiet and safe has never truly left someone's sight. He closes the laptop gently, as if afraid of breaking something fragile. Then, he returns to his daughter's bedside. He places his hand on Lily's back, counts her breaths. Each one grows a little more regular, but the sense of safety does not. Alex understands clearly. From this moment on, he is not only keeping his child breathing, he is keeping both of them from being crushed by something invisible that has finally spoken. After years of silence, that morning began exactly like the mornings Alex had been trying to preserve for months. He took Lily out of the apartment while the light was still in between night and day, not early enough to feel frantic, not late enough to draw attention. Lily wore her familiar backpack, the strap worn thin at the left shoulder, her steps a little slow from the fatigue lingering after the night of the malfunctioning nebulizer. Alex held her hand, his pace instinctively adjusting to Lily's breathing, slower, steadier. In the car, Alex talked about tiny things. He asked Lily what she wanted to eat after the appointment and reminded her to tell the doctor if she felt tightness in her chest. Lily answered quietly, nodded now and then, her eyes on the window as if counting the cars passing by. She squeezed his hand harder each time the car braked suddenly, saying nothing, but with enough pressure for Alex to notice. The hospital parking garage opened before them like a wide, hollow space, low concrete ceiling, fluorescent lights casting a pale white glare. Alex parked in their usual spot, turned off the engine, got out first, then walked around to open the door for Lily. She stepped down, her hand immediately finding his again. Alex let it be, did not adjust, did not remind her. There were things he had learned that were better left natural. They had taken only a few steps when Lily slowed slightly. Alex felt it through her hand, then heard raised voices ahead, not loud but sharp, like metal scraping metal. A man's voice, low and fast, another higher, tightly restrained. Alex looked up on instinct, and in that moment, everything slid into his field of vision in a way he could not ignore. A black car sat crooked between two lanes. The engine was running, the lights still on. A woman was pressed against the side of the car, her back against the cold metal, her arms forced behind her. The movements of the people around her were clean, precise, without waste. The woman tilted her head, her mouth opening, breath breaking into a short, cut sound. "Don't." The word barely left her throat before it was stopped by a hand placed exactly where it needed to be. Alex stopped, just half a second, long enough for his mind to switch states, long enough for old years to surface when he had been trained to identify risk before it was named. The group made no noise, no struggle, no one nearby stopped. A car door opened, and the woman was pushed inside. Then the door shut immediately. The black car rolled away, smooth, like a programmed action. Alex pulled Lily around. The movement was faster than necessary. Lily glanced back for a beat, then followed him. But in that moment, Alex's eyes had already taken in what they did not need effort to remember. The license plate, one character slightly scratched. The person building near the rear door has an uneven shoulder. The timing of the door opening, a fraction faster than normal. All of it stacked in his mind, like pieces long familiar. As they walked away, one of the people who had stood by the car turned and glanced over. The look was brief, carrying no clear emotion. But Alex understood it. It was the look of someone who knew they had entered another person's awareness. The black car exited the garage. At the same time, a faint sound came from above, a short beep, nearly lost in the surrounding noise. Alex looked up. A security camera mounted at the corner of the ceiling rotated slightly, its lens sweeping the area where they stood, then stopping directly toward him. There was no warning signal, no red light, just a small movement, enough for someone who had once lived inside systems to know a process had just been triggered. Alex bent down and adjusted Lily's backpack strap, pulling her a little closer to his body. "Keep going," he said quietly. Lily obeyed, but her hand did not loosen. "Dad," Lily asked, very softly, "what were they doing?" Alex did not answer right away. He guided Lily through the glass doors into the hospital, letting the interior light block out the parking garage behind them. "Don't look anymore," he said after that, the words landing cleanly, without addition. In the waiting room, Lily sat still on the chair, her feet not reaching the floor, her hands on her lap. Alex leaned against the wall, his eyes automatically scanning the entrance, the hallway, the reception desk. He realized he was slipping back into old habits, things he had tried to abandon. But his body remembered them clearly. The appointment went quickly. The doctor asked a few questions, voice even, eyes resting on Lily a little longer than necessary. Alex answered for her when she hesitated. As they left the room, Lily tugged his hand. "That person looked scared," she said, her voice steady but low. "The woman earlier." Alex bent down to her eye level. "You just need to remember the way home," he said. "Everything else is for me to handle." Lily nodded, but her eyes still held the image she had not yet put away. They returned to the parking garage. The midday light made everything look uncomfortably normal. People talked on their phones, cars moved in and out, and no one carried any trace of what had happened. Alex opened the car door for Lily, waited until she was seated, then went around to the driver's side. He started the engine, hands on the steering wheel, not rushing to leave. The phone in his pocket vibrated once, short. Alex did not take it out immediately. He checked the rearview mirror, then the side mirror. No black car, no familiar face. Lily finished buckling her seatbelt and looked over. "Did you forget something?" Alex shook his head and guided the car out of the garage. Once they merged into traffic, he took the phone out and rested it on his thigh. The screen lit up. A new message. No sender name, no number. Just one line of text, centered on a white background, as if carefully aligned. "Don't interfere." His finger opened the attachment. The image appeared instantly. A familiar elementary school gate, the school sign tilted under the sun. Dismissal time is clearly visible on the notice board. At the edge of the frame, a man leaned against a car, wearing a cap, his face turned partly away. Alex placed the phone face down in the cup holder. The car kept moving. In the back seat, Lily stared out the window, silent. The radio came on to a random station, a steady voice filling the car. The phone vibrated once more. Alex turned the car off the main road, driving slower than usual. Lily stayed quiet in the back seat, eyes fixed on the window, the radio talking about the afternoon weather, but not a single word reached either of them. The message replayed in Alex's mind, like reversed print. Even though the phone was face down, he did not need to open it again. The image of the school gate was enough to confirm what he had been trying to deny since the night before. Silence was not a safe option. It was only a way to delay the price. Alex stopped the car in front of a familiar house at the end of the block, a single-story house. White paint turned dull with age, a low wooden fence, a place Lily had stayed at a few times years earlier. He rang the bell. The woman opened the door, smiled automatically when she saw Lily, but her eyes lingered on Alex a beat longer. "So early," she said. "She's tired again." Alex nodded. "She needs to stay for a few hours," he said. "She's well behaved, won't be any trouble." Lily stepped inside, then turned back to look at him. "Where are you going, Dad?" The question came out naturally, like every time Alex left for work. This time, he did not answer. He straightened her jacket, placed a hand on Lily's shoulder, and squeezed gently. "Stay here," he said. "I'll be back." The door closed behind Alex. He stood on the porch for a few seconds, listening to Lily's shoes dragging lightly on the wooden floor inside, hearing the woman call her into the kitchen. All those familiar sounds suddenly felt distant, as if he had stepped out of a scene he no longer had the right to return to in the same place. Alex went back to the apartment. He did not turn on the lights. He pulled the curtains closed, set the laptop on the table. The old laptop opened, the screen lighting up slowly. He looked at his hands as he placed them on the keyboard. His fingers trembled slightly, very slightly, but he noticed this was not ordinary fear. This was the feeling of touching a part of his life that had been buried, something he had once promised himself he would never open again. He launched the old tool set. No polished interface, just stacked windows and raw data streams. Alex did not need to think long. Everything ran on habits, carved deep. He entered the license plate he had memorized in the garage and ran it against public traffic cameras. Frames appeared in sequence. The black car showed up at an intersection, then disappeared, then appeared again at a gas station south of the city. It stopped for exactly 2 minutes. Alex zoomed in. One person stepped out, a baseball cap pulled low, standing precisely where the camera angle could not catch his face. The movement was clean, unhurried. The engine started again, and the car drove off. Alex logged it. Time, camera angle, station location. He moved to the next frame. Another camera caught the car turning onto a side road. The license plate had changed. Not a full swap, just 2 characters replaced, enough to mislead any shallow trace. He paused on one frame and slowed it down. The person opening the rear door. Right hand. The way the hand settled on the handle, a slight wrist turn before pulling. A habit. Alex typed a few notes. No labels needed. He knew what he was doing. The next data stream showed something odd. At the same time, the black car left the gas station, and the route of small delivery trucks began appearing on cameras along the eastern industrial zone. Not one truck, 3, moving separately, yet their arrival times at the warehouse district overlapped too precisely. Alex straightened in his chair. He overlaid the data, watched the black car's path laid beside the truck routes. One layer of Motiamask Seneng, the other, like smoke, laid down to blur the real trail. Alex exhaled slowly. "Clean," he muttered, not directed at anyone. He dug deeper. The warehouse security shift schedule was stored in a secondary system, not hard to access, for someone who once had clearance higher than what his personnel file showed. He opened the logs and scanned line by line. Morning shift, afternoon shift, a 4-minute gap between the two, where the system recorded one guard leaving and the other arriving late. No incident report, no annotation. Alex stared at that gap longer than the other lines. 4 minutes was enough for many things, if you knew what you were doing. He stood up, walked a slow circle around the room, then returned to the table. The clock on the wall ticked into a new hour. Alex did not notice. He went back to the screen, fitting the pieces together. Black car, gas station, delivery trucks, warehouse district, shift gap. All of it converged on one area. Alex opened the map. The city spread out in blocks of color. He marked each point, each time stamp. One location began to stand out more clearly than the rest. A warehouse in Oakland, not the largest, not the newest, but close enough to container routes, with enough access points, and old enough that the security system had not been updated regularly. Alex zoomed in. Data layers stacked, cameras, routes, a side door on the west end. A small note surfaced, overlooked in the last inspection. The side door opened for a few minutes every hour for ventilation. No alert, no staff assigned. He leaned back in the chair, his eyes closed for a beat. Lily's image surfaced briefly, unfocused. He opened his eyes. There was no time for anything else. Alex stood up and put on his jacket. He did not bring much. Phone, keys. An old habit made him check everything twice. Before leaving the apartment, he looked back at the open laptop, the glowing screen, the map still displayed. He stepped into the hallway. The door closed behind him. Alex stood there for a second, then turned back, opened the door, and went inside again. He returned to the table and looked at the map one last time. The cursor rested on a single point. A line of text appeared, clean and emotionless. Oakland Warehouse. The side door opens for 3 to 5 minutes every hour. Alex reached the warehouse district in Oakland when the sky had darkened enough for the high-pressure lamps to take over from natural light. He did not drive straight to the main gate. The car rolled past it, turned into a narrow service lane behind the buildings, where old shipping containers sat in rows, like silent, forgotten blocks. He parked there, shut off the engine, and stayed still for a moment, letting his ears adjust to the area's rhythm. Distant engines, light metal contact, scattered conversation from guards changing shifts. Everything matched what he had read in the logs. No more, no less. Alex got out and closed the door gently. The wind carried the smell of oil and iron dust, a scent that nudged his memory sideways, back to the days when he entered facilities like this with a security badge on his chest. He stayed close to the wall, letting his shadow blend into the dark patches the lamps failed to reach. The west side door came into view, ajar exactly as the data had said. Beside it, a worker stood smoking, shoulder against the wall, eyes fixed on his phone. Blue light washed over a tired face. The man took a long drag, exhaled, lifted his head to glance around once, then looked back down. Alex counted silently. 1, 2, then slipped through the gap. The air inside was heavier. Metal, oil, old wood, pressed together, weighing on the lungs. Yellow lights hung high, creating scattered pools of brightness, with darkness deep enough between them to swallow movement. Alex placed his steps in a familiar pattern, toes touching down first, weight shifting slowly, so the concrete floor would not answer with an echo. He moved along the crates, keeping his body inside their shadows. Voices carried from somewhere farther in, a few short, blunt lines from people used to long shifts. Alex stopped, tilted his head to listen, then continued. He turned into a narrow passage where the light did not reach, and saw her. The woman sat beneath a single yellow lamp, the light falling straight onto her shoulders and tangled hair. Her hands were bound behind her with plastic ties, her wrists reddened. Her back rested against a crate, head slightly lowered, but her eyes were open, staring forward. No cries, only steady breathing, faster than needed to stay calm. Alex paused for a beat, observing. No camera directly above, a blind spot formed by 2 large crates set at an angle. He stepped out of the darkness and moved behind her. The small blade was already in his hand. He did not recall when he had drawn it. When he cut through the plastic tie, the sound was so faint he had to strain to hear it himself. The woman flinched, then froze, as Alex placed a finger to his lips. "Follow me," he said, voice low and even. "Don't ask." She nodded, short and decisive. Alex took her wrist and pulled her up. She followed without hesitation. They moved between crates, avoiding the light, slipping through narrow paths where sound bent and dulled. Alex kept a hand on her back, setting the pace, adjusting so her breathing would not spike too sharply. They stopped at a steel column where a breaker box was mounted lower than usual. Alex opened it, light from a small internal display spilling out. He did not need to read the labels. He pulled down a switch marked faintly. The lights in the eastern half of the warehouse cut out at once, darkness spilling forward like a heavy cloth yanked loose. A curse echoed somewhere. "Again?" Another voice answered, irritated, mixed with footsteps starting to move. Alex did not wait. He pulled the woman into a run, cutting through the lanes between crates. Metal scraped, dry sounds bouncing off hard surfaces like late warnings. He felt her breathing behind him, fast, but keeping up. They turned one corner, then another. Light from a rear exit spilled across the floor in a thin strip. Alex grabbed the handle and twisted gently. The door opened just enough for cold air to rush in. At that moment, a figure to the left turned. Light from the still-lit section caught his face for a split second. "Hey!" His voice snapped, higher than normal. "Stop!" Alex did not look back. He dragged the woman through the door and pushed her toward the parking area. Footsteps surged behind them, shouts overlapping. He lunged for the old car he had staged, opened the passenger door, shoved her inside, then circled to the driver's seat. As he slammed the door shut, something struck the side of the car hard, metal shuddering with a heavy jolt. The engine roared. The car lurched, tires spinning briefly on concrete before catching. Alex cranked the wheel, drove out of the warehouse area, and merged onto the dark road beyond. Headlights swept over running figures. light warping their faces for a moment before they vanished behind them. The noise fell away. The road ahead opened, dark, long, empty. Alex kept his hands on the wheel, eyes forward. His breathing was steady, controlled. Beside him, the woman sat upright, hands on her thighs, her breath slowed, shoulders dropping. They drove far enough that the warehouse sounds could no longer follow. Alex did not speak. He did not look over. He let the silence remind him they were still moving. The woman turned her head. Her gaze settled on his face, unhurried, as if comparing something from memory, detail by detail, line by line. She leaned slightly, so the dashboard light fell more clearly across his features. "I know you," she said, voice level, not shaking. "Alex Thompson, I'm Elena Vasquez." The car left the industrial zone at a steady pace, neither fast nor slow, as if the two people inside had simply finished a shift and were heading home. Inside the cabin, however, the air was so tight that one unnecessary movement could fracture the conversation waiting to happen. Alex kept his hands on the wheel, eyes forward, every sense pulled taut. The woman beside him, just pulled from captivity, sat upright with unusual calm. Her hands rested on her thighs, nails dusted with warehouse grime, hair disheveled, yet her eyes were sharp and calculating. When she spoke her name, the sound made the entire car seem to contract. Elena Vasquez, the name of the person who had signed the decision that erased Alex's career, the name that appeared on every document that forced him out, the name that had pushed him to spend the past 3 years on the margins of the tech industry where no one was allowed to make mistakes. Alex exhaled, short, then let out a stiff laugh. "I know that name," he said, without looking over. "I saw it under the signature when my entire world disappeared." Elena did not look down or away. "You don't need to dance around it," she said. "If you want to blame me, say it." Alex turned his head, fixing her with the look he had trained himself to hide for 3 years, the look of someone who no longer trusted anyone. "You destroyed my life," he said slowly, his voice not raised but sharp like the edge of metal. "And now you're sitting here, breathing in my car, after I pulled you out of the hole they locked you in." Elena took a breath, the corner of her mouth twitching, without becoming a smile. "I don't need you," she said, "but there's no one else." Before Alex could respond, his phone vibrated. The screen lit up in the dark cabin. A video played automatically. Alex's face tightened in the first second. Lily's school gate. A high-angle shot, steady and clear. Lily walked out, her pace slow as always, both hands on her backpack. At the edge of the frame, a man leaned against a car, cap pulled low. He did not approach. He did nothing. But his presence alone was enough to alter Alex's breathing. His grip on the steering wheel tightened until his knuckles went white. "If they touch my child," Alex said, the words catching in his throat, "they're dead." Elena tilted her head, watching the video, then looked at him. "They don't need to touch her," she said evenly. "They just need you to understand they know every weakness you have." Alex shut the video off and placed the phone face down. He eased the accelerator, bringing the car back to its earlier speed, but his breathing no longer held steady. "Explain," he said. "Why did I pull you out of there? Why is my daughter being watched? And why are you part of this?" Elena faced forward. "I wasn't taken because of Vasquez Tech," she said. "Not internal company business. That would be too easy." Alex curled his lips slightly. "Then who?" "Rival Tech," Elena replied. "And it's not a simple internal dispute. You've heard the rumors about their parallel AI project, haven't you?" Alex stayed silent. Fragments of reports he had avoided for 3 years resurfaced, sharp and specific. Elena continued. "Their AI system crossed testing thresholds abnormally. Too fast, too precise. I suspected something. I had people check. The result," she inhaled. "Their core code matches the structure of the original code you wrote." Alex glanced at her, his eyes going cold, as if someone had touched the part of him he had buried deepest. "Impossible," he said. "That code was deleted, locked, and buried. My name doesn't exist in any documentation. You know that better than anyone." "On paper," Elena said. "Inside internal systems, nothing ever disappears completely. They erased your name, but not your fingerprints." She looked at him. "They need you. My data isn't enough to strip them bare. And you're the only one who can point out their flaw before next week's conference." Alex gave a dry laugh. "You're using the word need with the man you pushed out of the industry." Elena did not answer right away. Instead, she said another name, heavier than all the rest. Marcus Hale. Alex turned fully toward her. Not just shock, but as if the entire direction of the air inside the car had changed. "No," he said. "He taught me everything. He pulled me onto the core team. He said I was the only one who saw the flaw before it became a disaster." "That's exactly why," Elena said. "He knows how you react. He knows how long you'll endure. And he knows the one thing that keeps you from standing still, Lily." Alex slammed his hand into the dashboard. The sound cracked cleanly, like something breaking after holding too long. "I tried to stay still for 3 years," he said. "I avoided everything. I went nowhere near any of it. They still came to my home." Elena looked at him, her gaze steady. "Because you never disappeared," she said. "They let you go, but kept the leash. They only needed to pull at the right moment." Alex turned onto a side road, empty and poorly lit. He pulled over and shut off the engine. The silence became heavier than the engine noise ever was. Alex leaned back, hands still on the wheel, as if letting go would cause the car itself to collapse. "What do you want?" he asked. "Say it straight." Elena turned toward him, studying him as if measuring whether he could withstand what remained. "I want to live," she said. "I want to stop Rivaltech from unveiling a product built on your stolen code. I want the conference to expose them. And I want Marcus to surface." N12. Alex looked out the window, where a lone streetlight cast a yellow light onto an empty stretch of road. "And me," he said, his voice lowering. Elena did not blink. "You want Lily to live." She let the words settle into the silence, adding nothing, padding nothing. Then, finally, Elena leaned closer, her voice dropping another degree. "If you want Lily to live," she said, "we have to strike first." Alex reopened the entire old tracking system, the one he had forced himself to forget for 3 years. Data windows stacked across the laptop screen on his lap, while the car sat in darkness behind a night market already winding down. Delivery routes, food courier schedules, irregular rental car movements, and a list of Rivaltech personnel who had been reassigned were all pulled into a single analysis frame. Each data layer pressed over the next like frosted glass, and Alex waited until one point lit up, where 3 layers aligned. A short-term rental apartment 10 minutes from the warehouse. Not an obvious site, not a sealed one. The kind of address so ordinary, it became suspicious. Elena leaned against the car door, arms folded, eyes fixed on the street. Alex turned the screen toward her. "Here," he said. "One food courier stops for 3 minutes. A rental car shows up twice overnight, and a former Rivaltech employee logs into the local network at the exact time Lily went offline." Elena studied the map, then looked at Alex. "You're sure?" Alex nodded. "Someone always gets lazy clearing tracks." Without waiting, he shut the laptop, started the engine, and eased the car out of the shadows. Elena grabbed the handle. "Wait," she said. "You're running hot." "Hot gets you trapped." Alex did not look at her. "Lily isn't data for me to analyze. She's out there. And because of that," Elena replied, her voice lower, "you can't afford to be wrong." But as she finished, Alex was already accelerating. The street where the apartment stood was unnaturally quiet. Hallway lights glowed on only half the floors. Ventilation fans from below hummed steadily and coldly. Alex pulled up to the curb and got out before the wheels fully stopped. Elena stayed close. "Slow down," she said. "You need to look carefully." Alex shook his head. "There's no time." He went straight for the stairs, counting steps like breaths. The apartment door stood in front of them. Seconds later, paint chipped in odd places, fresh footprints pressed into the cement. Alex placed his hand on the handle. It turned immediately. Unlocked. A bad sign, or a trap, but Lily could be inside. To Alex, the difference did not matter. He pushed the door open. The room inside was empty. No voices, no personal items, no lived-in smell. Alex made a short circuit, checking footprints, rug placement, and the angles of what little furniture remained. He put his hand on the back door handle. It was still warm. Someone had left minutes earlier. Elena stood in the center of the room, eyes sweeping each corner. "No one's here," she said. Alex did not answer. He turned back, and that was when he saw the thing that dropped every calculation down a level. Lily's nebulizer. It sat in the middle of the room on a low wooden table. The battery light blinked weakly, each pulse like a faltering breath. Alex stepped toward it so slowly it felt strange even to him. He reached out and touched it, felt the remaining warmth. He looked around, his voice rough, no longer his own. "Lily, Where are you?" The room stayed perfectly silent. Elena took a step back as she realized Alex's eyes were no longer processing reality the same way. "Alex," she said, "don't let." He cut her off with a look, not anger, something sharper, untouchable. Elena pointed at the wall. "Look!" On the ceiling, in the corner of the room, a small camera was mounted flush against the wall, aimed directly at the nebulizer. A red light blinked steadily, as if it had been watching Alex even before he arrived. Alex stood still for several seconds, then stepped closer to the wall. He tilted his head up, staring into the dark glass of the camera, his eyes reflecting that small red glow. Not angry, not panic, like someone remeasuring the boundaries of himself. The phone in his pocket vibrated, one short pulse. Alex lifted it and opened the message. A single line appeared, bare and precise. "You're late. Emotion makes you stupid, Alex." Alex read it twice, then lowered the phone. His chest rose once, uncontrolled. Elena watched him, her expression balanced between caution and concern. "They're testing you," she said. "They want to see how far they can push your reaction." Alex did not respond. He looked at the entire room, every detail arranged like a psychological exam. The deliberately placed footprints, the warm handle, the nebulizer with the battery is left, a watching camera. There was not a single sign that Lily was truly here. This was not a holding site. It was a tool, an emotional snare, a blade aimed precisely at his weakest point. He sat down beside the nebulizer and rested his hand on it. Small, light, familiar as his daughter's breathing every night. And that familiarity tightened his chest. He knew he had been led, knew he had let instinct outrun strategy, knew he had lost exactly one beat, and one beat could be enough to rip an entire plan out of his hands. Elena stood a few steps away, not coming closer, as if she understood this was not a moment Alex wanted company. "You have to pull the rhythm back," she said. "You need your cold head." Alex did not look at her. He lifted the nebulizer with both hands, his palms trembling slightly. Not from fear, from the truth surfacing faster than he could bend it. Until now, skill had been the only thing protecting him, keeping him alive, keeping Lily out of the darkness of a tech war she had nothing to do with. But in this moment, inside the empty room, facing the nebulizer placed like a cruel whisper, Alex realized the enemy was not only targeting him, but the way he operated in the world. One small deviation, one faster breath, one rushed decision, and all his skill would be twisted exactly where they wanted it. Alex tightened his grip on the nebulizer, eyes fixed on the space as if the truth had risen from his own shadow. He stood there, said nothing more, and understood that the fear of losing his child had thrown off the entire system he relied on to survive. Alex turned off all the lights in the car, letting darkness press down on the cabin like a blanket, forcing him to slow his breathing. Lily's nebulizer was still inside his jacket pocket, heavier than anything that should have been that light. He leaned his head back against the seat, closed his eyes, then opened them immediately, as if even his eyelids were not allowed to relax. "No more running hot," he said, his voice thinning, but each word still sharp. "Hot gets you killed." End quote. Elena sat in the passenger seat, silently watching him for a few seconds before handing him a cup of coffee she had bought at a nearby 24-hour store. "You were scared back there," she said. "No blame, just a fact laid on the table." Alex took the cup, the heat pressing into his hand like an order to return to a cold state of mind. "I wasn't scared," he said, eyes still on the darkness beyond the windshield. "I just missed a beat." The words were not for Elena, but for himself, like an internal strike at the one point he believed he could not afford to miss. He opened the laptop, blue light washing over two faces, trying to keep a child alive in the shadow of two corporations. Alex rebuilt the movement model at a pace that left no gap for stray thought. "Vehicles move cargo," he muttered. "Era houses move people. People switch carpools. Each layer always overlaps the one before it to erase the trail. I don't." Elena studied the tangled paths on the screen, her gaze lingering on a point offset to the east. No red alert, no arrows, just a patch of space that was unnaturally clean. "Why that spot?" she asked. Nothing overlaps there. Alex leaned in and zoomed deep into it. Because it's too clean, he said. Clean enough to stand out. Real data is always a little messy. Fake data is tidier than nature allows. Elena turned toward him, her expression shifting slightly. She had met people good at data analysis. She had met people good at internal tracing. But the way Alex saw things belonged to something else. The skill of someone who had lived in dark systems where every action carried an unspoken layer of code. What did you do at Vasquez Tech? She asked. Besides programming. Alex did not answer, not because he wanted to hide it, but because it was not something that fit into a short explanation. And in this moment, explaining it would not keep Lily alive for even one more second. He opened an old contact window. The account was shut down, but the internal line still existed. A number appeared. He dialed. Elena watched him, unsure what he was doing, but did not interrupt. The call connected after 2 rings. No greeting. A hoarse, exhausted voice came through, mixed with the hum of a fan on the other end. Alex spoke immediately. No introduction. Where do they move people after the bait point? The line went silent for a long beat. Then, the voice replied, very short, as if one extra word could cost a life. Check the east garage. The call ended immediately. Elena frowned. A friend of yours? No, Alex said. A disgruntled link, and they never talk much. He entered the new data into the map. Coordinates appeared along the eastern edge of the city, near container routes with constant truck traffic. The security cameras there were old, and coverage was barely 70%, a perfect place to hide people while keeping transport easy. Elena studied the map, then looked at Alex. This isn't on Rival Tech's facilities list. It's an old residential zone. That's why it works, Alex said. He zoomed in. An abandoned garage complex from 10 years back. A container road runs close along the north side. A secondary access route not registered on city maps. Rental vehicles are appearing nearby twice this week. Everything snapped together like a sentence, with the subject deliberately removed. Alex closed his eyes for 1 second. 1 second was enough to force his mind back into its old rhythm. The rhythm of someone who did not chase emotion, but made emotion follow him. Lily is there, he said, without raising his voice, and they know we're coming. He opened his eyes. The lines of his face sharpened, like a blade honed by a steady hand. Elena looked at him for a long moment, not to judge, but to confirm that the man she had seen in the warehouse hours earlier was gone completely. In his place stood another version, calm, cold, precise. Elena gave a slight nod. If they know you're coming, they'll set more traps. Alex closed the laptop. I know. You're still going, she said, not asking, only stating what was already true. Alex locked the screen and set the laptop on the seat. Slow, he said, is how you stay alive. Is accorded and dial dur 12. The engine started, the dashboard light cutting across Alex's tightened face. Outside lay a dark road without signs, and the massive shadows of containers standing silent like barriers in a deadly game. Inside the car, no one spoke again. Every piece of data was in place. Every mistake had been paid for. Alex's rhythm had returned, the rhythm of someone who could step into darkness without losing himself. And he drove toward the east garage, where a space too clean to be real was waiting for him to prove that this time he would not miss another beat. The east garage emerged under the yellow spill of light from the container road, steel blocks lined up in long rows like a metal graveyard. Wind slipped through the gaps between containers, producing a faint whine, and on the ground, fresh tire marks were clearly visible, proof that this place was far from abandoned, despite what the city map once recorded. Alex shut off the engine in a dark pocket, away from the main entrance, letting the car sink into shadow. He opened the trunk and pulled out a long crowbar. Elena stood behind him, arms folded across her chest, eyes tracking every movement. Alex tested the weight of the metal in his hand, then spoke very quietly. No fighting, just opening doors. Elena placed a hand on his arm, holding him for a beat. Are you sure you don't want me to go in with you? Alex looked at her, his voice without hesitation. If they see you, everything breaks. Elena nodded, unable to hide the worry that stayed on her face as she watched him step away from the car. She remained there, like a final anchor point, before Alex disappeared into the darkness of the garage. He moved into the container area, each step measured by someone who knew any extra sound could change the outcome. In the dark, the garage revealed the smell of hot metal and old oil, a scent Alex had lived with for years, enough that one breath told him what kind of machinery was running deeper inside. He ran a hand along the side of a container. The surface was cold, but the echo changed with each light tap, the sound returning like an acoustic map forming in his head. He went farther in, passing several stacked rows. His ears filtered every noise, wind, metal contracting in the cold, distant machinery, his own footsteps. Then, within that chaos, a very small sound slipped into his hearing, so faint that anyone but Alex would have missed it. A mechanical breathing rhythm, steady to the point of obsession. Foo, foo, foo. Lily's nebulizer. Alex straightened, held his breath for a beat. He tilted his head slightly to fix the direction. The sound traveled along metal, bouncing from container to container, making it harder to place. But Alex did not follow the volume. He followed the rhythm. He turned toward the second row on the right and moved to the third container. He wedged the crowbar into the door seam and pried gently. The door popped open. Inside was empty, only the smell of iron and old dust. Alex closed it and moved to the fifth container. He opened it faster. Inside lay a partially cut plastic restraint, abandoned on the floor as if someone had left in a hurry. Alex stared at it, as though rereading the motion of the hand that had cut it. He took a breath, slammed the door shut, and moved to the seventh container. The sound of the nebulizer grew clearer as he stood before it, even, small, constrained, breathing like a child, forcing herself to stay awake in the dark. Alex pried the door open. It burst free, and yellow light from a dim bulb in the corner spilled onto the face of a child curled in the container's corner. Lily. Her eyes were wide, fixed outward, as if she had been waiting for this moment for a long time, afraid it might never come. Alex dropped to his knees at once. Lily. She blinked once, then whispered, her voice dry and rough, as if fear had burned her throat. I knew you'd come. Dud. Alex pulled Lily into his chest for a single second, not squeezing, just confirming she was still breathing. He touched the nebulizer beside her, adjusted the tubing so it ran more evenly. There was no time to speak, no time to explain, no time to reassure. He lifted Lily, settled her against his shoulder, and turned to leave the container. The moment his foot hit the garage floor again, a shout rang out from deeper within the rows. Who opened Container 7? A man's voice echoed, warped by metal space. Footsteps began converging from multiple directions, heavy and fast, like a warning drum. Alex held Lily tight and sprinted for the exit. He glanced at the container shadows, calculating the shortest path that still avoided the light. Lily clung to his neck, not crying, but her small body shook with each stride. He heard guards closing in, heard them spreading out to box in whoever was inside. The garage was not large, but it was enough to create sound traps where every noise multiplied and bounced back in the wrong direction. He cut toward a side route along the opposite container row. A latch snapped open behind him. Voices overlapped. Sevens breached. Movement in the south section. Lock the rear exit. Alex accelerated, shielding Lily's head as they passed a blind corner. His feet skidded to a stop when the rear exit door came into view, the same door he had entered through earlier. The metal door showed clear signs of being locked from the outside. A thick bar had been slid into place, a heavy padlock hanging beside it. There was no way to open it from this side. Alex turned back toward the dark container rows, where footsteps were closing in from three directions. He shifted Lily into his left arm to free his right hand. Her breath brushed his neck, quick and uneven. There was no easy exit, no straight line, no advantage left for the one who arrived first. In that moment, he understood he was standing exactly where they wanted him, an enclosed space, dead ends everywhere, echoes distorting every judgment, a field not meant for heroes. And in his arms was the one person he could never afford to trade. Alex looked at the locked door, then at the shadows tightening in from three sides. He said nothing. He did not reassure Lily. He did not tell himself anything at all. He only kept his breathing steady enough not to pull Lily into panic with him. The east garage thickened into darkness like a massive steel box, every sound compressed and thrown back in unpredictable directions. Alex held Lily tight against his chest, one arm wrapped around her back, the other hand cupping the nape of her neck to shield her breathing. He moved between the container rows as if inside a maze, ears straining for the smallest sound. The guard's footsteps closed in from behind, metal clashing with radio chatter, forcing every calculation to shift by the second. "Don't cough, don't talk, Dad's here," Alex whispered into her hair. He felt Lily nod faintly, clinging to his jacket with all the strength she had left. Her breath brushed his neck, hot and shaking, making him tighten his hold, as if loosening even slightly would let the whole world slip away. Alex pressed his back against a container, holding his breath as two figures passed in front of him. Their steps were steady and heavy, the rhythm of people who knew this place better than he did. He waited until they turned down the right path, then moved the opposite way, choosing a wider detour. He followed the echo of their own footsteps, using it as cover for his. Lily lifted a hand and pointed toward a dark corner at the end of the container row. Alex followed her gesture. An old emergency exit was set between two large steel boxes. The hinges rusted, but the lock was not fully secured. "Good girl," Alex whispered. He moved quickly toward it, keeping his steps light. His hand pushed the handle, but it resisted, as if someone were pulling from the outside. He strained again, but the door only shuddered. He set Lily down against the wall, one hand steady on her shoulder. "Stand here. Close your eyes." Lily nodded, clutching the nebulizer with both hands. Alex stepped back, turned his shoulder, and drove it into the rusted door. The first hit barely shifted it. He clenched his teeth, drew a breath, and struck again, pain flaring through his shoulder like stone impact. The door burst open, hinges tearing loose on one side. Outside, light slicing in like a blade cutting between the warehouse and the world beyond. Alex lifted Lily again. He took one step out, then stopped cold. Outside was not an escape route. It was an open yard, bare, no cover, no wall, no darkness to hide in. The guards had formed a loose semicircle, guns hidden beneath jackets, eyes locked on the broken door. A radio crackled. Target sighted. Near the auxiliary exit. Alex scanned the space in a single beat. No route to run, no time. He turned Lily fully into his chest, shifting his body so his back faced the line of weapons. She clung tighter, her small frame shaking as if about to break. The guards advanced, their boots striking concrete, in a rhythm like a war drum. Then, a sound louder than all the others tore through the yard. An SUV burst in from the left, headlights cutting a hard arc across the container lot, charging straight at the guards at a speed that forced them to scatter in chaos. The nearest man was thrown backward, his gun flying from his hand and skidding across the ground. Alex stepped back on instinct, shielding Lily behind his shoulder. The SUV swerved hard, tires screaming against concrete. The driver's window dropped. Elena was behind the wheel, face pale from pain and exhaustion, but her eyes sharp and ice clear. She shouted over the engine, "Go! I'll draw them!" Without waiting for Alex to answer, Elena wrenched the wheel again, driving straight toward the regrouping guards, placing the vehicle between them and the exit Alex had just broken through. One figure raised a gun. Alex saw it before Elena did. He opened his mouth to warn her, but the shot cracked first. A bullet grazed Elena's shoulder. She jolted, her back slamming into the seat, her hand shaking, but the SUV surged forward another meter, forcing the guards to scatter to avoid being hit. Elena grit her teeth, exhaled sharply, her hand still locked on the steering wheel as if it were the only thing anchoring her to reality. Alex sprinted toward the SUV with Lily in his arms. He yanked open the passenger door. "Get out!" he shouted. Elena turned, sweat streaking her temple, her gaze sharp as a blade. "No," she said quickly. "Let them see me, not Lily." Alex reached for her arm, but Elena shoved the door toward him with all her strength, forcing him back a step. "Go!" she yelled, her voice breaking with pain but not weakness. "Protect her!" Alex stood frozen, Lily clutching his jacket, as Elena spun the wheel again, sending the SUV into another arc, dragging at least 4 guards after her. Tires ground against stone. Metal rang as one man slammed his gun against the window. Elena leaned forward, never looking back. "Let them see me, not Lily." The words cut through Alex's mind, and he understood. This was not recklessness. It was a choice, and she had paid for it the instant the bullet tore across her shoulder. The SUV roared away in a spiral of dust. The guards split, half chasing Elena, the rest turning back toward Alex, then toward the broken container door behind him. Alex knew they would return in seconds. He carried Lily backward into the darkness between two containers. Her breathing stayed pressed to his neck, heavy and fast. He hid half his body behind the steel mass, eyes fixed on Elena's SUV as it was chased toward the edge of the garage complex. The vehicle swerved sharply, then vanished into a narrow turn. A crash of metal echoed through the container yard. Elena still held the wheel, still pulling them away. Alex placed his hand on the back of Lily's neck, squeezing gently, not letting the tremor show. He knew one thing with absolute clarity. The price of an escape always requires someone to stay behind. And tonight, that someone could not be Lily. Elena leaned back against the car window, her breathing uneven, her left shoulder soaked in dark blood. Streetlights cut across her face at an angle, sharpening features tightened by pain but not shaken. Alex opened the emergency first aid kit he had pulled from the trunk, his hands still trembling slightly from the escape at the garage. Elena raised a hand to stop him, then let it fall when she saw the look on his face that allowed no argument. "Hold still," Alex said, his voice low and final. Elena clenched her teeth as the bandage touched her shoulder. "I can get on stage," she said between breaths. "Not pretty, just standing." Alex studied her for a long moment, as if trying to understand how a CEO hunted for her life could be this stubborn. "You don't owe me anything," he said. Elena closed her eyes for a second. "But I owe Lily." The words froze Alex's hand in midair. Since they met, Elena had never used this tone. Not weak, not soft, not apologetic, just truth. She opened her eyes, her gaze steady. "If Rival Tech wins at tonight's conference, everything ends. Not for me, for her." Alex secured the final wrap and stepped back. His face tightened, like a latch snapping shut on an emotion that had surged too hard. "Let's go," he said. They reached the convention center at its brightest hour. A sea of people, cameras, reporters, the sound of heels on marble, and keyboards clicking. No one knew that one of the night's focal figures had nearly died hours earlier. Elena stepped onto the red carpet with a slight unevenness from her injured shoulder, but no camera caught it. Her confidence dropped into place like armor, hiding every flaw. Alex looped around to the back, blending into the flow of equipment movers and backstage staff. The main stage flared with LED light, camera live streaming from every angle. Elena stepped into the light, and Alex saw her strategy clearly. Standing before hundreds of lenses was the only way Rival Tech could not erase her in silence. Every camera pointed at Elena was a shield. A stage assistant murmured to someone nearby, "Vasquez Tech's CEO is here. She looks a bit worn." The reply came quietly, "As long as she can stand. We'll fix the lighting when she's up." Alex did not linger. He followed the technical access route, heart rate driven down as far as possible. He had walked through this door hundreds of times back when he still belonged here. His fingers pressed to the old badge reader by reflex. The indicator flashed red. The door denied him with clinical indifference, as if the last 3 years were still standing there, waiting for the exact second he tried to return. Alex exhaled once and pulled a USB no larger than his little finger from his pocket. Not the original hunted code, but a variant he had written to slip through internal security layers. An old blade, sharp enough that too many people wanted him to forget it. He slotted the USB into the maintenance port, his hands quick and precise. The light switched from red to green. The door opened with a sound so faint it could be mistaken for air moving. He stepped into a narrow, dim corridor. Weak lights reflected off metal, pulling him back to the old halls where security engineers worked below ground, never appearing in performance reports. He reached the server room door, just as the MC's voice echoed from outside. "We are approaching the most important segment of tonight's conference. Please remain seated." Stage light pulsed through the narrow door gap like the heartbeat of something enormous. Alex pressed his fingers to the electronic lock of the server room. The core code he had once written to audit security was still buried somewhere in the system. He entered the old string, characters only 3 people had ever known, and now only one remained. The lock disengaged. His hands did not shake. They only shook when Lily's image flashed through his mind, along with her small voice, "Dad." He stepped inside. 2 people were in the server room. 2 guards, not in Vasquez Tech uniforms, but private security. They turned almost in unison. "Who are you?" one demanded, his voice taut as wire. Alex drew a breath, forcing his rhythm down. "I need 10 seconds," he said. "Just 10 seconds." The other guard pulled a baton, metal snapping sharply in the confined space. "You don't have 1 second." Alex did not retreat. He turned toward the main rack, intent on at least pushing the evidence into the broadcast queue. He made it half a step before both guards lunged. A shove to his shoulder slammed his back into the edge of a metal table. His arm was wrenched behind him. He fought, tried to tear free, but the baton strike came down, his muscles locking reflexively. He did not fall, but his vision flared like a blow to the temple. A grip clamped hard around his wrist, forcing him down against the rack. Cold metal pressed to his forehead. He twisted his head to see the screen ahead, a countdown ticking on the conference interface. 0 hours and 57 seconds. 0 hours and 56 seconds. Elena was about to be called on stage. If he failed to release the evidence before the announcement threshold, Rival Tech would win the entire war without firing a single shot. "Let me go," Alex gasped. The pressure only increased. One guard lifted a radio close to his mouth. "We've got him. Next instruction?" The reply crackled back, distorted but clear. "Keep him quiet. When CEO Vasquez goes up, move him to the rear vehicle. Don't let him touch anything." Alex clenched his jaw and twisted again, his eyes mapping every camera, every exit in the room. All sealed. Every chance of collapsing at the second, he was forced down. He tried once more to wrench his arm free, but a blow to his back knocked the air from his lungs. He looked at the conference feed. Elena stepped into the spotlight, standing at the podium, bandages still wrapped around her shoulder. She held herself straight, a vertical line against the glare. The MC announced her name. The hall fell silent for half a second, then erupted into applause and shutter clicks. Elena scanned the audience, while Alex watched her from behind a screen, the sense of standing on opposite sides of an unbreakable pane of glass. The countdown reached 0 hours and 45 seconds. At the same moment, the hold on Alex's wrist tightened until blood seemed unable to reach it. His breathing shortened. A guard leaned close, whispering calmly, "Just hold on a second longer. We'll let you sleep." The lever 20 tune. Alex lifted his head, cheek pressed to the rack edge, eyes locked on the timer. 45 seconds. 44. 43. The evidence was in the USB in his pocket. One press was enough. One press to overturn the core of a multi-billion-dollar technology plan. One press to save a child waiting somewhere, believing her father would come back. But his arm was pinned to the rack, immobile, and if he could not break free now, everything would fall into enemy hands. The timer continued its crawl. 0 hours and 45 seconds. 0 hours and 44 seconds. 0 hours and 43 seconds. And Alex was forced flat against the steel table, completely unable to touch the one system that could still save his child. The MC stepped into the light, like a sharp needle piercing the murmur of the hall. "Ladies and gentlemen, next is the most anticipated presentation of tonight, from Vasquez Tech CEO, Miss Elena Vasquez." Applause filled the room, camera shutters weaving together like metallic rain. But when Elena appeared at the edge of the stage, the noise stuttered for a beat. Her gait tilted to one side, her left shoulder slightly lower, each step taken as if balance were held together by will alone. People in the front rows leaned forward. A reporter whispered, "Is she okay?" No one answered. Elena reached the podium, one hand resting on the wooden edge to steady herself. The MC offered her the prepared script, but she did not take it. She glanced at the papers on the lectern, then used 2 fingers to slide them aside, brushing them away like something no longer relevant to this moment. A ripple ran through the audience. A Vasquez Tech board member murmured to the person beside him, "What is she doing?" "We're on a strict timeline," the reply came, irritated. "Painkillers, probably." Elena lifted the microphone. Her voice was not loud, but it forced every other sound in the room to dim. "Today," she said, "I'm not presenting anything." Backstage, people exchanged looks, calculations wobbling. A technician whispered to the crew lead, "Do we switch slides?" The other shook his head, unsure. Elena scanned the room, as if weighing each face. "We all know," she said slowly, stretching each word not for emphasis but to buy time, "that something is rotting inside." Marcus Hale's eyes widened instantly in the front row. He sprang to his feet, his tailored suit puffing under the lights. "Elena, stop this," he said, voice compressed but loud enough for nearby rows to hear. Several cameras pivoted toward him. Below the stage, in the technical level of the venue, Alex was pinned against the server rack table. The countdown timer on the system screen had dropped into double digits. Each second felt like a stone falling onto his chest. One of the guards tightened the arm lock, his muscles screaming under the strain. But Alex no longer saw them. He saw Lily in his mind. He saw Elena standing before hundreds of people. He saw a final chance closing, second by second. He braced his whole body and twisted his hips to generate force to the left. The edge of the rack dug into his hip bone, pain flaring, but it gave him the leverage he needed. He yanked his right arm, rotating his wrist to slip against the lock's angle. The guard clamped harder, but at the instant he shifted his grip, Alex drove his knee into the table edge. Not a strong blow, just perfectly timed. The hold loosened by half an inch. 1 second remained, an opening no wider than a crack in a steel door. On stage, Elena paused and drew a breath. She looked out at the sea of faces waiting for a sentence, any sentence, to label her action as madness or truth. "We are building something larger than the market," she said. She stopped, turned her gaze to Marcus, "and larger than the lies some people in this room carry with them." Marcus stepped forward. "You're not authorized to—" "No one said I was authorized," Elena cut in, raising her voice for the first time. In the server room, Alex twisted, lifted the wrist that had just broken free enough, and pressed the concealed transmitter in his jacket pocket, sending the prepared data packet. The press took a single breath. The data left the USB and slid into the presentation system like a thin blade slipping through a closing door. The LED screen behind Elena flickered. The entire hall jolted. Marcus spun around, his face tightening. "Shut it down!" he shouted at the technical crew, but the signal had reached the central system, where cutting it would crash the entire event. The screen shifted to blue. A block of code appeared, Alex's original code, time-stamped 3 years earlier, something no one but Alex could have written. The hall fell dead silent. Then, the system trace lines unfolded, exposing every rival tech intrusion. After that, an audio recording played. Marcus's voice boomed through the speakers. "Finish it. We have to launch before them. Even if we have to take his core code, he won't dare come back." Elena did not turn to the screen. She faced the audience. The way she stood was not that of a CEO under reputational attack, but of someone willing to let her image be torn apart to save what remained. Shouts erupted. "What did he just say? That was Marcus, wasn't it? My God, they stole the entire platform?" Security rushed Marcus as he tried to push toward the stage. He cursed, struggled, and kicked at the nearest camera. The hall collapsed into chaos and outrage. Below, the guards still held Alex, but the press was done. Alex gasped for air, sweat dripping onto the rack edge, eyes open as he watched the countdown freeze at 0 hours and 1 seconds, then switch to a different interface. The evidence was live. On stage, Elena stood at the center of the light, unblinking as the hall exploded around her. She looked downward, not at Marcus, not at the pale board members, but into an empty distance, as if speaking to someone not in the room. Her voice dropped a level, only audible to those nearby. "The system will bury this. It's far from over." The words landed like a line drawn, ending the speech, while opening another, deeper void waiting beneath this fight. The hall after the announcement looked like a place that had just survived a smokeless explosion. Media swarmed, backstage staff ran in confusion, and security pulled up barriers to split the flow of people. In the middle of that chaos, Elena stepped out, her face streaked with dried blood from the wound on her shoulder, her eyes red, but never lowered. She stood before a ring of microphones thrust up like scaffolding. Dozens of lenses locked onto every line of her face, searching for a crack and finding none. A reporter shouted, "Did you know beforehand that rival tech was using the original code?" Another cut in, "What was Marcus's role? Were they working together?" A third question was even blunter. "Are you still fit to remain CEO?" Elena raised a hand to stop the microphones from pressing closer. She did not dodge, but she did not allow them nearer either. "I take responsibility," she said. 3 words only. No defense, no deflection. Her voice cut clean through the air. Then, a group of internal security staff arrived, closing around her and pulling her away before the press could push further. They understood, and she did too, that one sentence more would push everything past control. Minutes later, in a shadowed corner beyond the press surge, Marcus was escorted out by 2 guards. His suit was rumpled, his tie crooked, his face still locked in disbelief. The people who had shared his table earlier now avoided his eyes. When reporters rushed in, a rival tech board member stepped forward, rested a light hand on Marcus's shoulder, and turned to the cameras with a measured smile. "Mr. Hale acted on his own," he said. "Rival Tech does not authorize anyone to operate outside procedure. A clean, compact line, enough to turn Marcus into a disposable piece pushed off the board, and enough to bury the deeper truth beneath it." Alex stood at a distance, his face half swallowed by the spill of stage lighting, watching Marcus being dragged away and understanding that this did not mean victory. Elena had only pulled down the first curtain. The layers behind it were still intact, cold, and unmoved. After getting clear of the technical level, he sat in the car for a few minutes to steady his breathing. His wrist still ached where it had been locked, but his mind did not stay there. His phone vibrated. "Elena," he answered without greeting. "It's done," Elena said, her voice tired but bright. "I've wiped the surveillance from your file. All of it. Every log, every trace. You're free now." Alex leaned his head back against the seat. "Free," he repeated, testing the feel of a word he had not used in years. "Freedom doesn't mean much if Lily is still afraid." Elena was silent for a few beats. Voices murmured behind her, likely legal counsel or board members. She spoke again, very softly. "You're the only person who understands that the cost of freedom isn't measured in signatures." The call ended. No thanks. No promise to meet again. Just a shared understanding left hanging. Alex drove home under streetlights, stretched into long yellow lines. Lily sat in the back seat, both arms wrapped around the nebulizer, holding it like the last small piece of safety left. She said nothing. Since being carried out of the container, Lily had looked at Alex the way one looks at someone who has just returned from a darkness. The eyes have not yet adjusted to leave. Alex opened the apartment door. The familiar space appeared, yet both of them stepped inside as if it were new. The smell of old laundry, the hum of the ventilation fan, the kitchen light reflecting off tile, all of it was so ordinary, it felt strange after what they had lived through. Lily went straight to her room, set the nebulizer on the table, then sat in the chair as if checking whether everything still stood where it should. Alex remained in the hallway for a long moment, then opened the drawer beside his desk. Inside lay the worn silver USB. The metal corner was scratched, the casing old, but inside it lived the part of his life written with sleepless nights, with belief, with mistakes, and with a price he never imagined he would pay. He lifted it. The weight was small, yet it pressed into his palm like a stone tied to memory. He returned to the living room. Lily looked up. She did not ask anything. Her eyes wanted only one answer, whether this would stop. Alex sat across from her and placed the USB on the table between them. "This," Alex said, "is why everything happened." Lily looked at the small device, not fully understanding, but sensing its weight. Alex held it between 2 fingers, turned it slightly. "I used to think it was an achievement, then I thought it was a burden. Now I see it's the thing that binds both of us." He closed his hand around it and snapped it. The small piece of metal broke with a dry crack, echoing through the room like the sound of a door finally closing after being left open too long. He set the broken casing on the table. "It's done," he said. No promise, no reassurance, just a statement of the one thing he could control. Lily watched him for a long time, as if trying to grasp what he had just given up. Then she stood, picked up the nebulizer, and went outside with Alex. They got into the car. Alex started the engine. Inside the narrow cabin, Lily did not take his hand. Her arm rested on her jacket pocket, fingers touching the button of the nebulizer. The machine ran steadily, steadier than on any night before, and Lily's silence stretched between them, not heavy, not light, like a new breath that had not yet found its name. The story of Alex is not the story of a single father, but a mirror for anyone trapped between fear, responsibility, and injustice. Alex shows that silence does not always protect us, and running away does not always keep the people we love safe. Courage does not lie in throwing punches, but in the moment when we are forced to confront a system thousands of times stronger than ourselves. Elena also reminds us that the cost of correcting a wrong is always high, but people truly lose everything only when they stop choosing to do what is right. From a personal journey, the story opens into a broader lesson. Modern society often operates through invisible layers of power, and ordinary people are the ones most affected. No one can protect the truth on our behalf, and moral responsibility always begins with the choices of each individual. If this story made you think, please share it so others can reflect as well. Thank you for staying until the end, and I promise to bring you even stronger content in the future. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow more inspiring stories.